Hi, I'm Dr. Marga Wu-Tan, Nutrition Policy Director at the Center for Science in the Public Interest. Welcome to Anatomy of a Supermarket Purchase. We'll walk through a few of the sneaky ways food companies and supermarkets influence our purchasing decisions, often without us even noticing. I've been working on nutrition policy at CSPI for over 20 years, working to get healthier lunches in schools, trans fat labeling on food labels, and calorie listings at chain restaurants, and to reduce unhealthy food marketing to kids. CSPI's goal is to provide information and make healthy eating easier. To do this, I've spent my career working to better understand how food environments empower or overwhelm us while we decide when, what, and how much to eat. Do you feel like you're solely responsible for your food decisions? Most of us like to think we're entirely in control of what we eat, and that as parents, we completely are responsible for our children's diets. I agree that as individuals, we play a central role in our own food choices and those of our families, but that's not the whole story. Even the best intentioned and most disciplined person can't always be in control of what we eat, and this can happen to us without us even realizing it. Let's use a familiar example. It's something you do when you're rushing home from work, while tackling your weekend errands, and in the mad rush in the 5 minutes before the store closes. Grocery shopping. We walk through the aisles, decide what to put in our cart, and buy it. That's all there is to it, right? Well, if that were true, most of our carts would look a bit different. In addition to what's on our list, we make a lot of spontaneous purchases. We buy things we don't need, and sometimes we buy things we don't even want. To explain why, let's look at 3 different concepts: the unconscious mind, defaults, and willpower reserves. We called this lecture Anatomy of a Supermarket Purchase because we're going to use these 3 concepts to break down what's really going on behind the scenes when we buy food at the supermarket. First, let's talk about the unconscious mind, and I don't mean hypnotism. Think about driving a car on the highway. It requires complex coordination. But have you ever snapped out of a train of thought to realize you've been driving along the highway without consciously thinking about it? An experienced driver relies on habit, like autopilot. That's an example of the unconscious mind at work. How does that apply to supermarkets? Well, even if our conscious mind isn't swayed by food ads, our unconscious mind might be. Before you set foot inside a supermarket, you're exposed to ads for many of the products inside. There are 4,500 marketing messages for foods, cars, appliances, and other consumer goods per person per day in the United States. That's 1 ad for every 14 seconds you're awake. Think about it. Would the U.S. food industry spend $33 billion each year on marketing if it didn't work? The food industry also spends money inside the store. Contracts between food processors and supermarkets determine which products get stocked and where. Prime locations cost more because they boost sales. In one experiment, people bought more potato chips when they were displayed on a middle shelf as opposed to a high or low shelf. Checkout and end caps also grab our attention. The locations of products are so important that supermarkets make more money from charging food processors for shelf locations than they do from customer purchases. Other details have also been carefully planned out, down to the size of the grocery carts. The bigger they are, the more you buy. Windowless buildings with forgettable music, bakery smells wafting through the store, and constantly reorganized aisles aren't an accident. They all prompt you to buy more. We rarely notice the marketing and in-store cues that influence our purchasing decisions, which is part of what makes them so effective. Sneaky, but effective. The next concept I want to talk about is defaults. Defaults are what you get unless you actively choose something else. In supermarkets, package sizes, food formulations, and food pairing defaults can influence what and how much we eat. In one study, 2 groups were given 5-day-old popcorn to eat out of different size containers. Now, of course, nobody in the study liked the stale popcorn, but the group eating out of the larger containers ate much more. Without realizing it, the default size of the container influenced how much the study participants ate. It's not only default sizes. The food industry uses default product formulations to influence our taste buds too. For example, 2-month-old babies who are given salty solutions reject them. But if some of the babies are fed salty foods for a few months, they'll later prefer saltier solutions than babies who are not fed a salty diet. Over the last half-century, the food industry's product formulations have dramatically increased the amount of salt, sugar, and fat in everything, from pasta sauce to breakfast cereal. Changing these defaults has shaped our expectations and our taste preferences. The food industry has also changed food pairing defaults. For example, in the 1950s, sandwiches were served with a pickle, but through marketing, Frito-Lay changed that default to potato chips. By manipulating the defaults that define our eating habits, food companies stealthily guide our hand as we toss food into the supermarket cart, getting us to buy more unhealthier foods than we would otherwise. The last concept I want to mention is willpower reserves. Oscar Wilde famously wrote, "I can resist anything except temptation." Most people resist temptation regularly, but it's harder to do when our willpower reserves are low, like when we're tired, overwhelmed, distracted, or have already made a lot of decisions. In one study, one group had to pick between a series of objects, while another group didn't make any decisions. When each group plunged their hands into buckets of ice water, the participants who didn't have to decide anything lasted just over a minute, while the participants who had made a lot of decisions could only withstand the cold water for about half as long. When you go to the supermarket after a long day at the office, you're likely to make different decisions than when you go first thing on a Saturday. By the time you make it to the register, you'll have already made a lot of choices. The average grocery store carries over 40,000 products. You may also be worn down by saying no to a child who's responding to tempting eye-level displays of products with their favorite cartoon characters or exciting prize offers. Being tired, distracted, or stressed all reduce your chances against the wall of candy you face at checkout, and food companies are counting on that. So while it might feel like we're in control of most of our food decisions, between our unconscious mind, industry-determined defaults, and fluctuating willpower reserves, our decisions are strongly influenced by outside factors. Food manufacturers and supermarkets know this and use our biology against us. Unfortunately, food marketers' financial goals are often at odds with our health. That's part of why 2/3 of us are struggling with our weight, even though we want to live long, healthy lives. But it's not all bad news. Companies could use their marketing genius to support health rather than undermine it. It's worked before. Disney has changed the defaults at their parks, offering healthier beverages and fruits and vegetables as side dishes with children's meals. 2/3 of families stick with these healthier defaults. When Google moved M&Ms out of sight at their office snack station, they reduced employee calorie consumption by over 3 million calories over 7 weeks. What if supermarkets did the same? What if supermarkets had fresh smells and images of fruit throughout the store, arrows pointing to the vegetable section, checkout displays without candy and chips, smaller packages, and no unhealthy food marketing to children? We hope you'll join with CSPI to bring about these kinds of changes. Help us work with supermarkets, restaurants, and schools to improve food environments and make healthy eating the easy option. Visit cspinet.org to learn more, and please join us.